All right, so what I want to do now is I want to do this same data set that I just talked about for time series. I want to do a histogram of that presidential age data at inauguration. So again, that's how old the presidents are at their date of inauguration. And what I want to do is I want to make a histogram of that data. So how do I do that in my calculator? We're never going to do this by hand. All right, so in your calculator, we're going to go stat edit, and we're going to type in the presidential data. I've already got that information here in list 3. So in order to do a histogram, we're going to go to stat plot. So we go second function stat plot. Remember, that's the y equals button, but it's the blue command there. So second function y equals. Plot number 1 right now is turned on. It's doing a scatter plot. So I'm going to go to plot number 1. Notice the other two are off. That's good. So I'm going to leave it on, and I'm going to come over here to histogram. That's this one. And I want to do a histogram. I have to tell it which list I want to do it on. So I'm going to tell it list 3, because that's where the presidential data was stored. Okay, so at this point, if I just hit graph, hey, look, I didn't get an error, which is good, because that means I've got everything typed in right. But I don't see my graph. Well, why not? Well, because my window is set to something wonky here that doesn't fit the data. So what I want to do is I want to adjust the window size. Now, we got to stop and think of what histograms look like, right? So they look like bar graphs, but they're connected because they are talking about, you're talking about this continuous set of data. So like if I were to just sketch a quick graph of what I think this is going to look like, right? I know that I'm going to have a break in the data here, and I know the youngest president is 42, and I know the oldest president is 70, and I'm going to have to decide on how many bars I want to break this data up into. So when I look at that and I go, well, from 70 to 42, how many bars do I want to have? So I have to decide on what I want this interval to be. This interval here is called the class width. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take our range here, 70 from 70 to 42. So what is that? 70 minus 42. That's equal to what? 28. So we decide how many bars we want. Well, let's say I wanted to have 6 total intervals. So I'm going to take this 28 and divide it by 6. And then that's going to be the width of the class boundary, the width of the class interval. So we're going to go 28 divided by 6. And that gives me 4.66666. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round that up. So I could either round it up to 4.7, or I could take it all the way up to the next whole number. And since this data is in whole number values, I'll go ahead and take that up to 5. So I'm going to start from 42, and I'm going to go by 5s. And when I do that, I will end up with a total of 6 bars for my histogram. So what do? I've decided on how big I want it, right? So this is going to be from 42 to 47. This will be from 47 to 52, etc. as we go through the data. So I'm going to go to stat edit. I've got my data entered. I go to stat plot. I've got my histogram turned on. Now I have to adjust the window. So I hit the window button and I go, well, who's the youngest president? Well, that's 42. So that means that my minimum value is going to be 42 and my maximum value is going to be 70, but I'm going to have to give myself a little bit of room because it's going to go up past the 70. So let's just go something a little bit bigger than 70. Let's go up to, well, if I'm going by 5s, then I'll probably have to go all the way up to 72, right? So then now, when I've decided here that I'm going to be going by, right, this was equal to 4.66, but we rounded it up to 5. So then I'm going to set my X scale. This is how you adjust the width of the bar. So the class width is going to be going by 5s. Now, the Y value, this is adjusting the heights of the bars, it's how big of a bar do you think you're going to have? Well, the smallest frequency that any class can show up. In other words, how tall is the shortest bar? Well, that's going to be 0. If I have nobody in a particular in a particular boundary, like if I had nobody from 42 to 50, from 47 to, right, if I had nobody from 47 to 52 in this bar, then that bar is going to be a height of 0. So, you know, I might have a bunch of young people and no from 47 to 52, and then maybe have more from 52 to 57, right? But if there's nobody in this bar, then that's going to be a height of 0. So that's what I have to show here. So then how tall is the tallest bar going to be? Well, I don't know, right? I haven't looked at the data in that amount of detail. So I'm just going to set this maximum value to be something reasonable. You know, there's a total of 45 presidents. Do I think all 45 are going to end up in one bar? Well, no. Maybe the most that are going to end up in one of these classes is maybe 15. That may be even too much, but let's find out. So now I should be ready, right? We're going to leave the y scale alone because that's just going to be what the tick marks are going to be going up the side. The x scale is how wide you want the bars to be. And now I go graph. And there's my data. So notice I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 total classes. And I can hit the trace button. And it shows me down here, it says the minimum is 47, the minimum is 42, the max is 47. Notice it says max is less than 47. So that means if a president was actually 47 years old, they would go into the next class to the right. If the president was 42, the left boundary is the actual minimum. So it starts at 42, it ends at 47, but the 47 actually is the beginning of the next class. So a 47-year-old would be in the second class. And if somebody is 52, right, if I arrow over here, somebody's 52, they're not actually in this bar, they are in this bar. All right, so now we take a look at that data, and remember, whenever we describe data, when we describe a distribution, we describe it by its SOCs, shape, outlier, center, and spread. So we take a look at this and we go, that's a very nice looking set of data. It's nice and mound-shaped. It's roughly symmetrical. It's not perfect. It's got a little bit of a tail out here, but it's roughly symmetric. So this is mound-shaped, symmetric. It doesn't look like it has any outliers. And if I had to guess where the center is, it's probably just to the right of 52, so maybe up here at about 55. Remember, the measure of center is usually going to be the mean. And I can find the mean if I go stat calc 1var stats. But notice also that it tells me how many presidents are in each class, right? So there's 4 presidents from 42 to 47. There's 11 presidents from 47 to 52. There's 14 presidents from 52 to 57. There's 10 presidents from 57 to 62. There's 3 presidents from 62 to 67. And there's 3 presidents from 67 to 72 at their age of inauguration. So I hope you found this helpful. There you go.